Good evening, everyone. This is the Board of Public Works meeting for Monday, March 6th, 2023. Call the meeting to order. The second item on our agenda is to welcome all new alderman, Brian Giles, to the Board of Public Works. Welcome, Brian. You'll find this is a little less structured than the city council meetings, and it's very interesting. I think you'll enjoy it, especially with your background. Item number 3 is approval of the minutes of the February 20th, 2023 Board of Public Works meeting. Mr. O'Reilly, Mr. Marshall. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mike? Aye. Good man. Item number 4, oh, that motion carries. Item number 4 is citizen comments. Any citizen comments? We have citizens here today. Citizen comments, I don't see any, so we'll move on to item number 5. Approval of a consultant selection for comprehensive outdoor recreation plan update, presented by Justin Casperson, Director of Parks and Recreation. Welcome, Justin.
Thank you and good evening. The Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan, I think you guys mostly know, is an opportunity for the city to evaluate its current outdoor recreation services and facilities, and then kind of set the course going forward. In December, the board approved us going out for RFPs for proposals. We sent it out to several firms, and we received 2 back, one from Ayers and one from Architecture and Planning. We've worked with both firms, and both firms are qualified to do the work. Recently, we worked with Ayers on the pool project, and then Architecture and Planning, we're working with them in the Brain Park project. The estimated budget for this overall is $15,000. Ayers came in at a cost of $39,000. Architecture came in at a cost of $22,600. So the difference is about $7,600. We feel comfortable moving forward with those estimates. Do know that the market is saturated at this point. A lot of firms are dealing with a lot of work out in the field. So I think that's why costs are coming in higher than anticipated. But what we're looking for tonight is approval to move ahead with Architecture and Planning's proposal at the cost of $22,600. And then tomorrow night, I go in front of Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee to ask for the budget resolution for the difference. So kind of walking hand in hand and step in step. But at this time, I'll entertain any questions specifically to the proposal that was inserted in the packet from Architecture.
Justin, they'll be able to get to that this year yet?
Yes, it is scheduled to be done this year. And that also makes us eligible for more grants from the DNR and other organizations.
Anyone else have any questions for Justin? Mike, any questions?
No. Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and a second by Mr. Varshaw. Motion by Fire. To recommend a proposal of architecture planning and planning for the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan update at a cost of $22,600. Further recommended and a recommended budget resolution to be drafted for Finance, Budget, and Personnel and the Common Council. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that motion carried.
Thank you.
Item number 5 is an approval of engineering services task order with Strand Associates for a final design of phosphorus removal facilities at the wastewater treatment plant, presented by Dan Knecht, Director of Public Works. Dan.
Thank you. Last week you saw the presentation of our final facilities plan for wastewater treatment that has been submitted onto DNR for the review, and it is now time to move on to our next phase of our phosphorus removal facilities. Strand Associates was selected through an RFP process back in the fall of 2021 to provide these facility planning services for the wastewater treatment plant, with again the focus being on phosphorus compliance. As was mentioned the other night, our current permit has a phosphorus compliance date of September of 2025. And we're targeting substantial completion for construction of those improvements in August of 2025 to allow time for startup. In 2020, late 2022, we had Strand do some preliminary engineering on the project here to define the scope of work better and get better cost estimates, and those were part of the package of what you saw last week at the council meeting. Back in October, the memo from back in October was attached in this packet here. So construction is anticipated to take over 12 months, and we're anticipating a bidding schedule of January of 2024. And we're wanting to start final design on this project immediately to meet this schedule. The latest cost estimate that we saw last week was almost $16 million for these improvements. Its proposed funding is a combination of wastewater utility reserves, clean water fund loan, and partial loan forgiveness that the DNR currently has available if you can meet their schedule, which is a deadline of September of 2023 to have your plans and specifications into the DNR for review. And that deadline actually aligns well with our schedule, compliance schedule for final design and bidding to meet the permit date. So both those things are driving our schedule and need to move into final design quickly. Even though the compliance date is over 2 years away, the timeline and this partial loan forgiveness target is really what's driving the schedule. Strand has a task order in the memo here that outlines the final design tasks and the bid document preparation. And there would be on target to meet that September 2023 goal to maintain eligibility for the loan forgiveness of $3 million. And as I mentioned, we'd want to start bid process in January of 2024 with hopes of construction then starting in May of 2024 and give us 15 months or so to get through the construction process. And what's critical is a lot of long lead times on equipment these days and supplies. So getting started here quickly is part of the goal. Once we get through the design process, then there would be one more task order to get through construction phase services with the consultant. In the packet, the design cost here for this phase of the project is $890,000. It is a big number. It's 5% of the 6% of the total construction cost. Industry standard for this type of a design is in the 7 to 8% range. So I think some of the preliminary work that we've gotten done here and defining the scope tighter has helped us keep that design cost down. So the recommendation tonight is to approve the task order with Strand Associates for phosphorus removal improvements, which would get us through final design and bidding service.
Questions for Dan? Mr. O'Reilly?
Yeah, Dan, is there any guarantees on their design to meet that timeline, or I'm just curious because it sounds like there's a lot that depends on that.
Are there penalties? There's no penalties in the contract for that, if that's what you're asking. So is there a guarantee? Probably not a formal guarantee. They've delivered on schedule leading up to this point. The DNR compliance has strict timelines and when you have to submit reports and updates and progress, and they've always met those deadlines for us. So we would have full confidence that they'd be able to do that for us.
Any other questions? Okay, we're looking for a motion to recommend approval for task order 2302 with Strand Associates of Madison.
Motion to approve.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Fire, second by Mr. Varsho. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Seeing no one, that motion carried. Item 6, approval of resolution 2023-23, vacating a portion of an easement through the Quick Trip site at 1600 West McMillan Street, presented by Tom Turchy, city engineer.
Work will be starting soon on the newest Quick Trip located at the intersection of McMillan Street and Veterans Parkway. When McMillan Street was vacated and discontinued by Resolution 97-41, the city of Marshfield retained easement rights in the vacated right-of-way corridor. The proposed plans for the new Quick Trip have shown a portion of the proposed building being located within that vacated McMillan Street easement. In order to eliminate this overlap conflict, it will be necessary to vacate and discontinue a portion of the easement as shown on the attached survey map that is highlighted in gray. So I would recommend approval of resolution 2023-13. I put the wrong number in there, and refer it to Common Council for their consideration.
Mr. O'Reilly. We have a motion. Second by Mr. Giles. Tom?
Yes.
What would happen if we did not?
Well, I'd have to ask them, but they would probably adjust the building and still build it. But it's only encroaching like a 10 by 10 triangle, more or less. It's corner of the car wash. So they're only taking a small portion of this area, and this was probably the quickest way to get that release easement.
And we're not likely to use this easement?
No, not at this
Their
time.
building?
No.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed? Seeing none, that motion carries. Item number 7, an update on the 2023 snow and ice budget presented by Chris Hawley, street superintendent. Chris?
Well, good evening, everybody. I'm here to give you an update on the 2022-2023 snow and season and salt usage. So normally I'd like to kind of just, sit up here and talk about the memo, but I did such a good job on this memo, I want to read it to you. So as we are starting out to wind down the snow season for 2022-2023, I wanted to give you an update and look back into the last 5 years on the number of snow events and our trend in salt usage. A snow event is defined when we send out the fleet to do a salting and our full plow operation. A salting event deals with snowfall accumulations of less than 2 inches or dealing with black ice. A full plow operation, like this morning, is determined when we receive greater than 2 inches of snow. And then I laid out a historical number of events and salt usage from the last 5 years. As you can see from the data here, I did note our salt usage last year seemed quite high and came up with 2 conclusions after doing some research. One, I did look back at our snow event log and did notice we had quite a few rain and freezing rain events during the season, especially in December. Rain and freezing rain are very difficult to deal with during the winter season, and salt usage goes up with this type of precipitation. And number 2, we're dealing with a whole brand new leadership team here, and we're quote unquote learning on the fly as the season went on. Trying to figure out the proper amount of salt to put down for an event, achieve safe roads for the motorists, and balancing between using too much salt or too little salt takes experience. This past year, our leadership team has attended a few seminars and salt-wise events on how to reduce salt. As you can see so far this year, I believe we're on the right track and are still learning how to reduce the amount of salt and achieve safe winter driving conditions for the motorists. As our leadership team and crew gain more experience, I believe we will continue in the right direction of reducing our salt. So for example, in 2018 and 2019, we had 36 events and we used about 2,500 tons of salt. And so far this year, now we're up to 38 events because we went out this morning. We used about 2,425 pounds, or 2,425 ton. So I think we're going in the right direction. Even this morning, my guys went out at 4:30 this morning, started plowing, started putting down a little bit of salt. As they were plowing, they're saying, hey, the roads are looking pretty good. So we just cut off our salt usage halfway through the event. So I think we're heading in the right direction. I also estimated the total cost so far for this year's budget. I've estimated that we've approximately spent $525,000 of our $925,000 budget, or about 57% of our total 2023 budget. With March, November, and December left to go in the budget cycle, I feel confident that we are heading in the right direction to stay within our budget. Let's hope for an early spring, doesn't look like that, and a mild fall. Currently, our salt inventory is as low as I've seen it in my tenure here at the street division. For the first time in about a decade, we've seen the back of our salt shed going into the latter part of December with very little reserves starting out in January of 2023. As you can see from the chart above, we have ordered 12,860 ton of salt in the last 5 years, and have currently used 12,625 ton now, with the months of March and April left to go in this year's snow season. Salt orders are purchased through the state bid, and these orders must be in the spring for the following season. So the DOT will contact us in the next couple weeks, let us kind of know what we want for the 2023-24 season on how much salt we want to order. I've noticed the declining trend in our reserves and have slowly increased the amount to a comfortable level. When preparing the 2023 budget, we did commit 2,500 ton of salt for the season and have 500 in reserve that we can purchase yet. Hoping to see a winter like we did in 2021. As you can see, we had 21 events only, and we used about 2,000 ton. I made the choice to cut the option to buy a reserve of 500 ton at a cost savings of $45,750. As you can see from the number of events this season already, we're on a 5-year high, going into 38, and later this week doesn't sound very good. We're at 38 events right now with a couple more weeks left to go in March. So this is for information only at this time. No actions required by the board, but in the very near future, I will be contacting the finance department to see if we want to do a budget or resolution to purchase this salt, or do we wait in the end of the year to see if we have any leftover monies in that budget to purchase the salt. So I will be contacting Jennifer and Jordan to see what we want to do. The reserve that I have, the 500 ton in reserve that I have with the state right now has to be purchased by mid-April and delivered by the end of April. If you're wondering what the cost was for an event like today, this morning we went out. Today's event cost about $26,000, and that was a full plow and salt event, but we didn't use much salt this morning. If we were just to go out and just salt less than 2 inches, it costs about $8,000, just to give you an idea. Now, I did do a little analysis from the last 14 inches of snow that we got. We started plowing early Wednesday morning, and with the pickup, we worked until Saturday morning. On Wednesday, we worked 10 hours from 5 a.m. to 3 p.m. and a quick turnaround, sent the guys home. They worked 12 hours on Thursday, 10 p.m. to 10 a.m., 12 hours on Friday, 10 p.m. to 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. again. And then they came back in late Friday night, Saturday morning, worked from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. The total cost of that snow event was about $145,000. So just to guys give you an idea, I couldn't be more proud of the guys. When we said we were coming back in Friday night, we only had one person that already committed to go down to the state wrestling tournament. Everybody else showed up, and it took a lot to get the downtown cleaned up and all the side streets. So we had to pull a few streets, open up catch basins. So we ended up with 14 inches of snow and about a half an inch of rain like a day later. So 2 days later or whatever it was. So with that, I'll entertain any questions.
Chris, lost it. Okay, there was something that you mentioned earlier that I just don't remember right now. Dan,
I'll just throw it out, Chris, so if we would choose not to buy that reserve in April of this year, when is the next time we can order extra? Because you've got 2,500 typically is what you would,
We wouldn't get our next, shipment until January 1st, sometime that
right?
early January. So we'd probably be going into November and December and run out of salt. So,
I remembered my question.
okay,
The, one of the things that I hear from people when I talk to citizens is how do they determine when to put down salt and when to plow? If you could just share that so people know.
sure. Of course, we try and keep the roads as safe as possible with the motorists. I think the nice thing that Jody had commented to me last week, Jody, the police chief, that he said they had very few accidents, if any at all, during that snow event that we had. So what we're learning is maybe not put down as much salt anymore. We put down less salt, wait for it to take a little bit longer to activate. We have a great weather system that predicts, for instance, like today, by 8 o'clock in the morning, we had road temperatures that were above 32 degrees. And you let Mother Nature take care of what's out there. So, yeah, it's a learning thing as you go along. I've been doing this for about 5 years, or well, since 2015, actually. I've been assistant, learned under Kurt, and we just, if it's, the biggest thing is temperature, road temps. If it's gonna be 15 degrees above, salt, just straight salt with pre-wet works great. Below 15 degrees, we do have some additive to drop that working temperature of the salt, so.
Any other questions or comments? Thanks, Chris. It was just an information item, so there's no action needed. Item 8 is recommended items for future agendas. Seeing none, motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Varsho, second by Mr. Fire. We're adjourned.